Welcome back, everybody. My name is Tim, and this is another Real Ideal Gear review. Today we're going to be looking at the Signum Cuda, a full titanium, full lume watch. Although it looks average on the surface, as we start going through some of the uses that I have put this watch through and some of the dimensions that are out there, and when you look at this watch overall, you're going to start to see this watch stand out from the rest. We'll go through the 5 things that I typically measure a watch by, which are size, fitment, finish, accuracy, and legibility in lume. So we'll start off with the first one, which is size. Because this is a full titanium watch, the overall weight of this watch is low. So those of you that are used to the stainless steel sized watches as far as the weight goes, this is going to have a lower weight feel to it. It's a typical diver design, and so for the medium to large size wrist, this is an easy fit. Something else I think that is really important is the height of the watch off the wrist. And this watch really does a good job of not being too tall off the wrist. And so as far as like snagging on things, I don't suspect this watch is going to be doing that. I've been using it for several months now with my lawn care maintenance business and doing maintenance on my equipment. I've got some video here of my doing some trimming of saplings and things like that on my property. And it has a really good overall feel. It fits like most other dive watches, so it's not slim like a dress watch is. So as far as fitment goes, the clasp on this watch is great. It has 5 holes for adjustment, which gives you 4 adjustments. So keep that in mind. Even though there's 5 holes, you only have 4 adjustments because one of them is in use all the time. But you can really get a real precision fit with that clasp. The bracelet itself is easy to adjust. It has the screw pins that are on there. So removing links in your bracelet is really not that hard to do. I've been able to get a really good fit on this watch. The proportions on this watch are really outstanding. The length of the watch, or the lug-to-lug distance is great, the overall diameter, and then the height off the wrist. All those proportions actually make this watch look really, really nice visually. And as far as fitting on my wrist, which is an above average size wrist, it really does a great job. The finish of this watch is titanium. And all around, it's awesome. It's a durable watch. In my opinion, this is a work watch. Like, I'm wearing this watch more and more for work just because of the design of the watch and just how it feels on my wrist as I'm doing different activities with my lawn maintenance company. The finish of the dial is also something I think you need to keep in mind, that the dial itself has really nice finish qualities. It has a really deep orange color, which is really important for legibility. But the indices are also, they're applied indices with a silver outlining to them. And to me, that gives it a good 3-dimensional feel to it, which makes it easier to read. Get into that more in the legibility, but really easy to look at. And it just has a good finished feel to it. So it's not such a plain watch to start with that you kind of get lost in like, well, this is a really simple watch. There are some finishing pieces to this that really start to stand out. One of the finishing pieces I'm not a fan of is the orange tip on the second hand. It just blends in. You have some lume on the tip, which you also have lume on the indices. And so those two together really don't do any favors for that second hand as it sweeps around the dial. So not a real fan of the finishing on that. As far as accuracy goes, this is an NH35. No issues with the NH35. You're going to be good. This is a watch that I've noticed there is a little bit of change from I'd say 1 month to the next as far as the overall accuracy goes. So I'm going to keep an eye on it, keep measuring on the time grapher, but I don't think this is anything that I'm going to be really concerned with overall. I think the accuracy of the watch is going to be just fine, like any other mechanical NH35 would be. Legibility and lume, sword hands. I really like the sword hand design, especially when you have lume on them. It just stands out so well in the low light to nighttime hours. The indices stand out really well as well. The 12, 9, and 3 markers are different from the rest, which is hard to say from, like, for instance, the Phoebus Proteus, where all the markers, the hour markers, are all the same. And so as far as indexing that in the middle of the night, more difficult to do when you don't have a different design for those quarter hour or quarter day, I guess, indices. So the 12, 9, and 3 are different. The 12 is different from the 9 and 3. So now you know where the 12 is. And that's one of the features I look at more and more, because if I don't have my reading glasses on, and it's low light or it's nighttime and 4 in the morning, I want to be able to see what the time is and know how the watch is oriented on my wrist. which sounds like a weird thing, but you know, when you have such small differences between the hour markers on the dial on your wrist, and everything's a little bit fuzzy, it can make a big difference. The lume on this it's incredible. You hear about it, and until you see it in person, it's amazing. And so there are the three color choices that I had when I bought this watch was the white dial, the orange, and the blue. The white dial I was not going to get because the contrast is not high enough between the hour the hour and the minute hands compared to the dial. So that was out. The blue, I'm just not a huge blue watch fan. One of my favorite colors is burnt orange, and this gets really close to that color. So as far as a favorite color goes, this is really does a great job. And the full lume dial, it's bright in orange. That lume is orange. And my wife, she commented on how orange it was and how bright it was. I mean, this is like a nightlight when you're walking around the house after charging it up with a UV light. It's for several minutes. Like, it lights up the hallway. It's impressive. Now, when I got this watch, I paid attention to the contrast, and one of the things I knew that I was giving up when I got the orange dial versus, say, the white dial, if you're going for maximum full lume dial, output, you want the white dial. But I wanted the orange dial because, I wanted the orange color, but at the same time, I knew the hour hands, the hour, minute hand, and the indices were the things I was most concerned with later on in the night. So the lume dial is great. I mean, it's a great showpiece. It's a conversation starter for sure, because it doesn't take much UV light for that thing to shine brightly in a low light situation. But when it comes down to waking up in the middle of the night or just, darkness, it's the lume on the hands and the lume on the indices that matter the most. And so that's where it all came down to me. Is like, yeah, I'm going to go with the orange dial because the hands, the indices will be just fine. So overall impressions of the watch, it's a simple design, but the simple design has some really high quality features to it, like the indices, like the lume. The bezel is lumed. It has a shark tooth bezel, so you have the 5-minute increments on the bezel. It's a great high contrast bezel, black and white. You have different, I think there's a different color. You could choose blue and white. And I just wanted the darker color. I went with black and white. And again, for contrast, higher contrast. It's a lightweight watch. The crown is easy to get a hold of and make adjustments. It's scratch resistant. You've got the sapphire, you've got the titanium. This to me is a good work watch. And I do wear this more when I'm working. And I have less and less hesitations about wearing this watch when I'm working. The high contrast dial, easy read with no glasses. The profile, I don't think it's going to catch on a lot of things. It's kind of that typical diver, maybe a little more on the slim side because there's just not a lot of sapphire glass sticking up above the bezel. The one ding, again, goes back to that second hand. I wish they'd have made the second hand a higher contrast color on the end that would contrast with the dial and the indice as it sweeps around the dial. So that's the only ding. So as far as a score from me, I'd give this a 9 out of 10, and I'd be totally happy with that. Even if somebody says, hey, 9.3 or 9.5 out of 10, totally fine with it. I'm around the 9 out of 10. It's got some simplicity to it, but at the same time, the qualities, when you stop to look at it, are outstanding. So this is another Real Ideal Gear review. My name is Tim, and if you have any comments or questions, please leave them down below, and we'll see you next time. All right, so what we have here, this is an Echo. What is this one? This is the 225, I think. This is the smaller 21cc engine. But this has the PAS system on here, the power attachment system. So you can take off the bottom half and put on other attachments. So during the summertime, I have the string trimmer on here for trimming around trees and buildings and things like that for the lawn business. And I'll do shrubs and other things. I have a hedge trimmer attachment for this. I have a broom attachment for it, and I also have a cultivator, which you can turn over garden soil. Actually, I have a sidewalk edger. That's what I primarily use this with, is a sidewalk edger. And you put that on. Works perfect for that. Perfect size engine for sidewalk edging. But for doing the saw, it's a little underpowered. And my other power attachment system, power head, is, oh man, it's close to 20 years old, 15 plus years old. So this was an upgrade about 3 years ago when I got back in the lawn business. So anyway, It's a cool tool. It does a lot of cool things. Gets you a lot of work done with just one power tool, power head attachment. But as far as what I use this for, this is where I'll go through and I'll trim limbs. This is really good for trimming close to the ground, where a chainsaw, you run the risk of hitting dirt, rocks, that kind of thing. And you can do it, but this does a better job for anything that's about a good inch in diameter or smaller, and it cuts through it pretty quick, especially with a more powerful power head on the end. So, but this is the Echo, and I use this tool all the time. My guys that work for me, they like this one because this is the lighter version of the trimmers that we have. So, anyway, bada bing, bada boom.